This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Roll out the holly, Rob. It's the last Page show for 2018. Can you believe that? Another year come and gone like that. Congratulations, we made it. Mele Kalikimaka from Hawaii, where Karen Y. Noda, who teaches writing, tells us about her first published book, and it's a perfect fit for the moment. It is entitled A Christmas to Last Forever.
I wrote the book for my boys and for children who love Christmas. I always wanted a book like this when my children are growing up. It's how I brought them up, to have traditions so that they could enjoy the wonder and magic of Christmas all the time. It's a story about a boy who begins to question if there's Santa. My book, A Christmas to Last Forever, is a book for parents to read with their children to help them transition from make-believe into traditions. And they can make traditions of all the things they love and value about Christmas. It's kind of my answer to the Dear Virginia letter. It keeps the magic of Christmas alive without the lies. The book dialogues about, what they think Christmas is, and it kind of lets them come to that conclusion, because most children know, but they can't. The parents are threatening them that if they don't believe, then, they won't get things and Christmas ends. But I'm saying that Christmas can continue. You just need to transition it into traditions, and then you dialogue with the child and you talk about what do you want to keep, even if they know, and you continue those things. So, you can still do the Christmas presents if that's what you want, or it could be simple things like just singing songs or getting together and making cookies. It's traditions. It's whatever the family decides they want to continue.
What are your
Forever,
traditions?
yeah. We still have Santa gifts, and we also do Christmas trees. We decorate it together, things like that. Little things. It's nothing big. We don't have large Santa gifts anymore, just tiny things. But it's whatever your family decides they want to continue.
This is a great time.
Yes, it is.
What are you doing?
Because Christmas is around the corner. I've been going into private bookstores, and they've been doing it on consignment. I brought out the book last year, but it was very late. So a lot of my friends already know about it. They've seen the book. They bought the book last year. And hopefully this year, they'll have more time to tell their friends also.
What do you think sets your book apart from other Christmas books?
Well, this one is the interactive book. So it's something a parent would use to dialogue with a child. It's a story about a boy who's starting to question, so they can ask their child, what they believe in and what they think. So it's more of a book that they can share with their child and transition it. Because I think a lot of parents don't know how to transition it. So it becomes all or nothing. Either you believe in Santa or you don't believe in Santa. And I think a lot of parents are stuck. So this book really helps them transition it into, we can, not be telling the fibs and the lies. But we all know, but so what? We can still continue what we believe in and what we treasure as tradition.
Nice, Karen. The spirit of Santa Claus alive and well. I totally believe that. People who've battled cancer often go through remarkable transformations, and Elaine Ionelli is one of them. She shares in her book, Diagnosis Cancer, her battle and her resolve to somehow get through one of the most difficult times in her life. Elaine.
It was the year 2008, and I was 67 when I awoke with swelling on the left side of my neck. My husband is a physician, so I asked him what that was all about, and it was diagnosed as Burkitt-like lymphoma. I do term it sort of like a blood disease, but it was called Burkitt-like because something typical in a Burkitt was not in my DNA, but the treatment was the same because each cancer has its own regimen of how they deal with it.
Is it a difficult regimen?
Well, it's pretty involved. It uses chemotherapy, and I had a choice of going with 3 rounds or 6 rounds. And I chose the 3 because it seemed like it would be quicker. I was not realizing I would be getting double the dosage, but that is what happened, and went through the procedure. But the reason I shared my story was I was hoping and praying it would provide comfort and spiritual healing and encouragement to the reader. That was the only reason that I went through all of this. And they said if you did not catch it in time, you had 3 to 4 months to live. It was that aggressive of a cancer.
Wow.
But if you did catch it in time, you had a 90% cure rate. What was interesting was I started out that I tend to journal things. And so I started out with just entering information about what was going on. And then as time went on, divided itself into the mass, which took the reader from discovery to diagnosis. Then I went into enter the alien land, which was this new environment, all the unfamiliar terminology, the diagnostic tests, all this was new. Then the treatment part, which was what was used to try to control the cancer's growth, and then it went into feelings and my own personal ups and downs, and also went into encounters that let the reader meet some of the people who crossed my path during this time, which was my family, my friends, my hospital staff, fellow patients, and even strangers, because as soon as they see you with a bald head, they know something's up, you know.
Now, I mean, you write in your blurb that you went through a spiritual awakening through all of this.
I am a born-again Christian, and I was kind of not actively doing all the things that I believed in, and I do believe in attending church and all these different things. And when I had my tissue biopsy, they put you under just lightly. And I awakened, and I was wide awake, I swear I was. And I could hear the girls in the room talking, and a woman came up beside me, and she was dressed in regular clothing. And she said, "I'm sorry to tell you, but you have cancer, and I want you to know that there are a lot of support groups out there." And then she was gone. She wasn't there. And all I know is normally when a person is diagnosed with something that is possibly terminal, they go through certain stages of denial and fighting and all this. And I just had a peace. I had none of that. And I attribute that to God.
Faith is a powerful thing, Elaine. Thank you. Investment banker and semi-retired Jack Flowers adds author to his list of accomplishments. The name of his book, Rat 6, based on a true story about being drafted into the Vietnam War and becoming a leader of the 1st Infantry Division, Tunnel Rats.
My family's heritage is military, so I was always sort of asking myself the question, is it my turn to fight? And on Moon Day, which was July 20th, 1969, I found myself in a rice paddy in support of an infantry unit with my team. And we were pinned down for the night, mosquitoes, all wet and not being able to move around. The word came down from above that we had landed on the moon. And the man's name was Neil Armstrong. And I said, what the hell am I doing here, and who in the hell is Neil Armstrong? I was a first lieutenant in the Army Corps of Engineers and assigned to the 1st Engineer Battalion of the 1st Infantry Division. So I sort of made myself a little vow that night that I would quit drinking, quit smoking, go back to school, get a degree, Well, fast forward to like November of that same year, I was back in school, flunking out, drinking and playing cards every night, and was engaged to a girl that I've known for about 2 weeks. So I woke up one morning and we had a very fuzzy black and white television, and here was the second man landing on the moon. And it sort of hit me about those vows that I'd made several months before. So I quit school immediately, broke off the engagement, and fled to Europe, went back to Denmark where I had lived before, and trying to figure out what I was really going to do with my life. And I stayed with my girlfriend's mother and I slept on like a cot. And one morning she came to me and sort of shook me a little bit to tell me that she was going to be late. And I was startled, and I grabbed her by the throat. And it scared her to death, but it scared me even more. And at that time, I realized something was very wrong psychologically with me. And I started writing this book. 4 years later, got my degree, and found myself being hired by H. Ross Perot as a stockbroker. And that summer, I sat down with a friend of mine, and we finished the book. Rat 6 was my code name as being the leader of the 1st Infantry Division Tunnel Rats. So the story basically goes through 1968 and 1969 when I came to Vietnam. And, the people and the men that I was surrounded with, my team especially, and as important, my sergeant, Robert Batten, and his nickname was Batman. So in 1985, I got a phone call from the BBC. They were doing a story about the war and interviewing a lot of the Vietnamese soldiers. And they poo-pooed the American soldier and said they were never afraid of them, except they didn't like the tunnel rats. And they started doing a little investigation. There wasn't much about the tunnel rats. So they somehow managed to get an advance to write a book about this group of men. Then they came to the United States and tracked down people like me. One of the chapters of his book, which was called The Tunnels of Cu Chi, was titled Rat 6 and Batman. And it described me and my sergeant. That chapter got excerpted in Life magazine. And on the promotional tour of the book, 60 Minutes interviewed myself and 5 other tunnel rats in New York. My story was one of the most colorful and unique, I think, in their book. And yeah, I've had a lot of notoriety because of the story. And recently there's a front page article about me in my local newspaper.
Great.
And so I've been slowly but surely trying to figure out a way to leverage all of that information.
Well, it's certainly a compelling story, Jack, and you're already getting traction, so just stick with it. And it's time for us to take a very, very, very short break, but we are coming right back. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
Hey, we are back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Vance Jason Garrison has been writing for years, and finally, in spite of his battle with cerebral palsy, he has completed his first book. It is entitled Myth of Catastrophe. Hey, Vance, Page Publishing here.
Okay, we're on the right page.
We are on the right page. That's correct.
I love that. Page Publishing.
So the name of your book is Myth of Catastrophe. So you've made the best of your life.
I tried to. I've done other jobs, but I was a school teacher and I went to UK and college and all that stuff, and after I got retired from the school teaching, I done other things. I just tried to make it. Yeah, I'm 60-some year old. Yeah, I'm old. I'm old as dirt. This is essentially what my book is about. The handicapped overcoming their inconvenience, becoming potentially productive members of society. It's not a book that's a real sad book. A lot of people think, it's sad because on the front of the book I've got the different stages of a handicap's life. Like, they start out with the braces, and then they start out with wheelchairs, and then crutches, and finally they're standing on their own. As I look back on it, maybe I should have had a new picture for the front, but that was my progression. I mean, that's what I put down. I started out crawling, and then I, got able to walk, and I was at the Children's Hospital in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I was about 5-year-old before I actually got the hang of walking.
So your book's about your journey, and so you were able to teach, and you were able to have a fulfilling life despite the progression of this disease.
Just read a little bit of this to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just got it here. Just a couple of paragraphs.
Okay.
I want the inconvenience to think of themselves as capable instead of being capable, taking the dis out of disability, making ability their primary focus, reaching one's fullest potential no matter how insignificant it appears to others, when doing your best is all you can do. I feel this is a book whose time has come. Society has grew more aware of the potential the inconvenience have. They have built buildings with elevators, and they have put in ramps on sidewalks, and they have given the handicapped a more fair chance at going to work. And that's just a little bit of it, and I think that, kind of sums it up. And I went into the different topics of the handicapped plight. Like, I even talked about chapters on sex, love, and marriage. Something that years ago wasn't even thought about.
Did you get married?
Oh yeah, I've been married. Oh, you don't want to know. I've been married 3 times.
Oh,
oh Lord. Yeah, I've the first time, it was a 6 weeks thing. I don't even think it should count it, but I mean, the society counted it. But yeah, I've got 2 kids, and I've been married 3 times, and I'm now divorced. I'm not sad about anything. I think I've done the best I can do.
What's the takeaway?
The handicapped should be allowed to reach their fullest potential, even if it doesn't sound like anything to anybody, and it may be very insignificant to society or another person. When people have read this book, and I've had feedback, and they tell me that there's things in there that they didn't realize, and that is the takeaway, to give society a little bit better understanding of the handicap, because a lot of things, people don't realize that we go through with state on every level sometimes, and that's the takeaway.
You're such an inspiration, Vance. Thank you. Timothy Goodyear started his book in the 1990s and finished it in 2008. Always a reader. He loves historical fiction. So he did the research and penned a story about the conquest of England in 1013 by Denmark. Tell us about Uncommon Life.
It's basically about a fictional family in a fictional town in England, and they're like eyewitnesses to the history happening around them. And the lead character of the book becomes a trusted advisor of the King of England, King Ethelred, he was called. And he is involved in this war that goes on for more than 10 years, which finally ends with Denmark conquering England. This character's life is kind of influenced and controlled by this mysterious female character who has ulterior motives. And her influence on his life and how his family grows is really evident. And there's some sort of a purpose behind all of her actions, which is hinted at but never really explained in the book. And the story continues on from there. After the end of the book, I'm already working on a sequel. My original manuscript covered a period in time that took the story all the way up to the Battle of Hastings 50 years later. So when I wrote this original manuscript, I had about 20 copies of it made, like at a Kinko's or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I distributed it to some friends and family and for their, feedback and input. And I had this one friend that was a journalist. he worked in the comic book industry, and he did interview books with people like Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman. So his opinions were important to me, and he advised me to write this story in this format, and I thought it was good advice, so that's what I did.
Did he have any advice on how to tell people about it and how to get people to buy your book?
Not really. I've been getting a lot of advice from a lot of different sources. I'm trying to set up more of a social media, like a website and a Facebook page, and trying to get the word spread that way.
Okay.
But I don't have a lot of experience with marketing, so I'm really depending on advice from other people.
Have you been to your local library?
Not really.
A lot of times local libraries will say, come meet a local author, and you can do a reading and you can do book signings. Get your local newspaper to do an article on you. You're an author now.
I have my local newspaper where I grew up in Upper Peninsula, Michigan. They did a notice about my book.
Okay.
I've been trying to get something done here locally with Milwaukee, trying maybe to get my book reviewed or something. That's still an ongoing struggle.
Yeah, well, everybody's got a different way of doing it, but usually it's best to start where you know, start where people know you. And if you have a local library, go tell them you're an author and you'd like to promote your book and you'd like to invite people into the library and you'd like to read parts of the book and talk about it.
That seems like good advice.
Okay, we do what we can here at Page Publishing. Thanks so much, Timothy. Finally, Samuel Oenya, Communications Professor, Department Chair, and Program Director at Lewis University in Illinois, has been able to lead and make significant changes at his university. And in his book entitled Servant Leadership, he talks about what it takes to be a good leader, recognizing people over money, and the importance of empowerment. Samuel.
Because over the years, I have studied leadership on a whole and found that we have the industry have been using the outdated leadership model. And that to be a leader, you have to be a servant first and learn how to serve others. In other words, the servant leader is wanted to write it so that leaders at all different levels, whether it's in business, corporations, educational, and industry, church, family, and all of this will learn this new way of this new initiative of leading, in which case the leader will be able to empower the people, empower the women, men, and everybody that they are leading in their corporations and their industries, so that then they can be more efficient, more effective leaders.
So you have used these practices that you talk about in your book?
Yeah, I've used it in my workplace. I've used it in church. I've used it at home. My family, I've used it also in the community. I was also a community leader.
What would you say the key is to being an effective servant and then leader?
Understanding human relationships, that people have talent and gifts that they can bring into service, recognizing that others are significant in whatever it is that you are trying to lead them to do. I was also a military commander. And so I found out that to lead people, you have to recognize their potential, their abilities, their skills, their talent, respect them for who they are, recognize their input, recognize their presence in the environment in which they are being led.
Don't you think that's even more important than money?
Exactly, because see, the traditional, the more conventional leadership recognize power and money over people and what they stand for, what they can bring into the business or into the environment in which they are being led. So it's really not about money. But then the traditional conventional leadership styles that have been used over the years do not recognize the significance of the people who contribute, who collaborate in that productive environment. So it's not about money. But then the conventional leadership styles usually is, well, we want to make so much money and we don't care how we make it. And then we put our power over the people and therefore not even recognize the significance of who they are and what they contribute. Really, in the empowerment of people is where there is strength in how organizations operate, lead, and exactly. If you don't empower your people, then you really miss the point in human relationships, because empowerment and the enabling delegation of authority and of power, sharing that power and authority, is what makes successful, efficient, effective leadership.
How are you getting that message out?
Well, what I'm doing now is working to do a public speaking engagements, doing training courses on leadership using the servant leadership module. So do public speaking, do teach courses in leadership using this module. So that is what I'm doing right now, making presentations so that then they can see the value of this new module of leadership, which empowers people, encourages people, strengthens people, so that then they know their worth, respect, and trust that those who work for you, you are their servant. You serve, and when you serve, you have power, and that power is shared between you and those with whom you are working.
What a concept, Samuel. So true. Thank you so much. What a gift. And this is our last gift to you till 2019. Can you believe it? 2019 is coming. Are you prepared? Well, ready or not, here it comes. Thanks so much for joining us, not just now, but throughout the whole year. I honestly am so honored to talk to all of our authors who have worked so hard to make their dreams of publishing a book come true. And I look forward, and you should too, to keeping those dreams alive in the new year. In the meantime, no drinking or driving out there. Take lots of notes over the holidays when your relatives start heading for Crazy Town, and you may find you have a book. Don't forget you can download all the Page Publishing Book Club shows at 710WOR.com. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Have a great new year.